Time for a cooking lesson that will forever change the way you think about cooking. This lesson begins with a recipe for my grandmother's famous 珍珠丸子. My grandmother, I call her Nai Nai, made these pork meatballs covered with a delicious and chewy layer of sticky rice. You can find recipes for this dish online, but Nai Nai's version was truly special. Her secrets were to soften the flavor of ginger by infusing it into water. Water chestnuts, to add a bit of crunch, had to be crushed, not chopped. And for the garlic and green onions, Nai Nai chopped those incredibly finely. The meatballs were then rolled in sticky rice, steamed, and the result was a dish that leaves a lasting memory. After my family emigrated from Taiwan to the United States, my mother took over the cooking lessons, and she had strict standards, maybe to make sure we continued the food traditions. So she inspected everything we cooked. I couldn't even chop garlic without her saying, 奶奶切得比这个要细多了. Nai Nai chopped this much more finely. My mother could have just said, go chop this more. But by reminding me of Nai Nai's cooking, she made sure I put in the effort to get to meatball perfection. There are versions of this story happening all over the world. In South Asia, families are gathering around pots of simmering dal. In Latin America, women are teaching the proper way to pat tortillas between your palms. In West Africa, a typical dish is groundnut stew with fufu, a cassava dough. And to get the proper sticky texture, fufu needs to be vigorously pounded. So I can imagine mothers saying, you've got to pound harder, more like your grandmother. Through cooking, we nourish our families, and we pass on traditions from generation to generation. But cooking also has tremendous costs. There is another side to cooking. To show you what I mean, I want you to picture your kitchen at home. But instead of your gas or electric stove, there's an open fire because that's all you can afford. Your eyes sting and water, and you cough from the smoke. But you can't leave to get relief since you need to tend the fire and food. Your children are nearby, also breathing in all this smoke. It's like exposing your children to secondhand smoke from 400 people, each smoking a cigarette. Picture everything in your home being black with soot. The house itself is covered with soot. But smoke is not your only problem. You need to gather firewood, and your neighbors do too. So in every direction, the land is getting more and more barren. Every day, before you can even start cooking, you need to walk for hours to gather enough firewood, carrying all of that weight on your shoulders. And if you're in a conflict area, this also puts you at risk for assault and rape. That's one household. Now multiply that by 3 billion people. Almost half the world, who have to cook on open fires and traditional stoves, using fuels like wood, charcoal, and dung. We don't typically think of cooking as a health risk. It's supposed to be nourishing. But smoke inhalation from cooking results in 4 million deaths every year. That's 3 times the number of deaths from HIV/AIDS. It's not just a health problem, though. The amount of wood burned is like losing over 5,000 square kilometers of the Amazon rainforest every year. The fires produce greenhouse gas emissions too, the equivalent of 170 million passenger vehicles. It's hard to believe that something you do every day, something we all do, that's central to our lives and our culture, has such harmful impacts on almost half the world. But if we can improve how the world cooks, if we can tame fire, we could potentially transform the lives of billions of people. The good news is that creative people around the world are working together to solve this problem. Already there are innovations with stoves that use less firewood, fuel alternatives made from waste materials, liquid and gas fuels that burn more cleanly. We're seeing solar cookers, even stoves that can generate a bit of electricity to turn on a light or charge a phone, but that can also power a fan to reduce the smoke. But despite these successes, there are still challenges. Many new stoves, quite frankly, aren't as good as we need them to be. Turns out, designing stove technologies is as hard as rocket science. Actually, probably harder. With rockets, you have consistent and high-quality fuel, and usually a big budget. With cooking, the fuels are low quality and more varied. The cooks and cuisines around the world are even more varied, and the technologies need to be affordable and easy to use. Each of these factors just adds to the difficulty of the engineering challenge. One way to address these issues is for individual entrepreneurs to design better products and reach more people. That absolutely needs to happen and is happening. But remember, we're talking about 3 billion people, so we need to think on a grand scale. Is there a way to motivate and mobilize all entrepreneurs together? To answer that question, let's go back to Nai's cooking for just a second. Her meatballs set the standard, and my mother motivated me to reach that standard and cook amazing meatballs. And if you let my mother come visit your kitchens, I can guarantee all your meatballs would be elevated to that same standard. We also need standards for the technologies we use to cook, to motivate and mobilize us. But stay with me. I know that when I bring up standards, a common reaction is, "Oh, wake me up when you're done talking." Even people like me who devote their careers to this will admit that standards isn't the most thrilling topic. So why should you give standards a second look? Because in many industries, they represent our shared goals that we work towards together. So for cooking technologies, our goals are to reduce the smoke and the health burden on cooks in Bangladesh, to reduce the time and money households in Ghana spend on fuel, to ensure stoves are durable so that a Guatemalan family who saves up for a new stove can rely on it for many years, and to ensure that whether you're cooking tortillas, fufu, or jinzu wanzi, it'll be convenient and delicious. So that's why our community started on a journey to develop Cookstove standards. In total, our group has 40 countries, and that number continues to grow. Instead of each country working on their own, the world's best experts from many countries are working together. And I'm proud to say that we have by far the most involvement and leadership from developing countries of any standards effort in history. We have representation from all parts of the Cookstoves market: manufacturers from Uganda, government officials from India, researchers from China, and consumer advocates from Peru. The standards-making process brings together people with different priorities so we can balance multiple goals. So for example, manufacturers provide feedback on whether a standard is achievable, while governments push us to be more ambitious. Also, we want standards that are relevant to all the different ways that people cook around the world. But standards also mean consistency, so that across many countries we can compare apples to apples, or in our case, stoves to stoves and fuels to fuels. And we need rigorous standards, of course, but how can we do this in a way that's realistic for countries where resources are limited, to have an impact where it's needed most? So we have all these sets of competing goals. And this unique international collaboration is how we bring our different goals together. When we're done, governments can set regulations to protect health and the environment. Manufacturers will have incentives to innovate, and consumers will have better technology options with less smoke that use less fuel. There are still other important areas that need our continued focus to solve this huge global problem. But first, we need to point ourselves in the right direction, in a common direction, so we can advance how the world cooks. When my parents were children in Taiwan, Nanai cooked jinzhu wanzi on a traditional stove using charcoal and wood. So in my parents' memories, and for generations, the aromas of cooking were mixed with the smell of smoke. In the 1960s, Nanai was able to purchase an electric stove, secondhand from the military. So the aromas I remember are the garlic and ginger, sesame oil and soy sauce in perfect balance. Your memories must also be filled with the aromas of foods you love. Let's keep these traditions, but do it in a way that's healthier for billions of people and cleaner for the planet. And let's set goals so that we go farther with each generation of technology and with each generation of people. Let's be hungry. Thank you.